And I'm BELEAF Mel.
And we're here with episode 160 of
How Married Are You? Okay, my name BELEAF. This is Yvette, and we've been married
12 years.
Live in California, and we got four
kids.
Relationships scary, it's very necessary. We share our love struggles. We ask how married are you? Every Tuesday and Thursday, shawty. If you're listening, you're in the wedding party. It's okay if you want to put your hands up. You got the questions, we got the answers.
It's chocolate baby story time.
Chocolate baby story time. It's chocolate baby story
time.
1, 2, 3, and
It's chocolate baby story time.
all right. So I needed to come home and do a task. When I got home the other day, Theo was like, "Oh, Dad, can you help me get my hockey puck off the roof?" And I didn't want to get it, but I was like, all right. But my big question was, how did it get on the roof in the first place? And do you know what he said?
Mm-hmm. Well, we already talked about it because I was like, how did it get on the roof?
Yeah. And so the hockey puck is actually pretty heavy. It's like, I would probably call it a pound, maybe.
Okay.
Might be a pound. But I was like, how did it get up there in the first place? Because he tried to make it seem like I was like being a bad father by not doing it at his first request. But because I bought him plenty of hockey pucks and all of them are gone. So anyway, I said, how did it get up there? And he goes, I think a bird picked it up and put it up there. And that was like the moment I was like, I used to lie like that when I was a kid. And that was just dumb. Like that was dumb. You know what I'm saying? And he said it like I wasn't going to question it. And he's like, well, that's the only thing I could think of how it got up there. I know what he did. He threw it up in the air trying to catch it with his hockey puck, and it just got stuck up there.
You
like
think
hockey
so?
stick. Yeah, absolutely. But he didn't want to say that.
I was buying into it.
You thought a bird picked it up?
I wish we had footage on the camera out there.
That's just crazy. Okay.
No, I was going with this story.
No, absolutely
Now
not.
I feel silly. Okay, so the kids have been playing this game called Would You Rather. And, I'm never really invited to be a part of it, but I'm always overhearing it. And the other day we were in the car and Theo and Raya were in the back and they were playing Would You Rather. And Theo asked Raya, he goes, I'm sorry, I wrote things down. He goes, Theo asked Raya, would you rather be on a road trip in a car with Big Time Rush? And I don't know if y'all know who Big Time Rush is, but Big Time Rush is like this boy band that they are really big fans of. Or ride in a Tesla with Taylor Swift. At this point, I'm like, how do they even know who Taylor Swift is? Yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
One of the childcare providers, I think, told them about Taylor Swift or whatever. And when Theo asked a question, Raya doesn't respond. And then Theo, I think, was caught off guard because he's like, easy answer, bro. What are you thinking about? Theo said, what? And then Raya responds, well, Taylor Swift is kind of cute. And I was like, wow. We know what kind of kid Raya is. He's like, I ain't getting in the car with those boys when we got these girls over here. This is also coming from the kid who is saying that he will not be getting married or whatever.
Yeah.
So it was funny though.
That's wild.
Yeah. Okay, so today we actually have a voicemail that you guys can either email us at hello@howmarriedareyoupodcast.com, or you can send us a voicemail in. And I was really trying to get that phone number for you real quick. But if you want to look it up, it is on our How Married Are You website. I'm just going to tell y'all real quick. The phone number to send us in a voicemail is 760-33.
Sorry. It's the computer that makes that buzzing sound.
But that hasn't been here the whole time, so. Oh.
Yeah. Okay.
Interesting.
Go ahead.
If you'd like to email us, you can email us at hello@howmarriedareyoupodcast.com. If you'd like to send a voicemail in, you can call us at 760-335-6643. Now, if you leave us a voicemail, it's really important if you let us know if you want your voice disguised. some people have friends who listen to the podcast or significant others who listen to the podcast that might recognize your voice. And if you want to conceal your identity, let us know. Or if you just want us to kind of sum up the situation versus playing the voicemail, that's also good to know. We are going to play this voicemail.
Is this a voicemail from our number?
Yes, we have voicemails, and I apologize to those of you who have sent us in some.
How long is this video? How long ago did she send this?
I think this one was in March.
Oh, okay.
So we're not that far behind, but we are definitely behind on voicemails.
Okay.
So. Yeah.
Hello. I just was calling to let you know I appreciate your podcast, your ministry, all that y'all are doing. I had a question about expectations. So my husband, because of his family of origin, is very anti-expectations, whereas I am a super planner and I like structure and expectations. I thrive when I have them because I know whether I'm doing a good job or not. So I just wanted to know, is there, in a relationship, in a marriage, when are expectations good? Because I think that my husband, and I could see this, but my husband, there will be unmet expectations, or you might have expectations that the person didn't know about. I don't know if that's making sense, but I could definitely see the danger in expectations when they're outrageous and stuff like that. So anyways, I hope that made sense. Hope y'all are able to get to my question. Thank you so much, and hope y'all have an awesome day. Thanks.
Thank you so much for calling in, person.
Yes, thank you for sharing with us your issue.
Can you break down that? Because I kind of lost me.
So she's basically saying expectations help her thrive because she's essentially an achiever. She's like, if I know it's expected of me, then I know I can do all these things and I'm doing well. Mm-hmm. But if I don't know what you expect of me, then how am I supposed to do well? And she was sharing that her significant other doesn't necessarily care for expectations based on his experience growing up. And that is becoming a point of tension in their relationship because I think, well, from what I am, not at this point, I am now making a conjecture, but I think that he experiences frustration or whatever because she's not meeting expectations, but she's like, I didn't know that was an expectation of me.
So she's saying that her husband does have expectations?
But he's not clearly communicating them, and he's claiming that he doesn't care for expectations because of his family of origin.
But I didn't get that from that. But
what did you gather?
I gathered that she likes expectations because it allows her to be successful in whatever she wants to do. Like, she thrives off of it. But he has, it's almost like you and me situation where I will say yo, I don't have any expectations, right? Or do you think I have expectations?
Keep going.
I don't have any expectations from these people because I always get disappointed anyway. You know what I'm saying? So I'm okay not having expectations because it's a way of protecting me.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
And I feel like she is describing you in that realm.
So I didn't understand her point when she said, it's becoming a problem now. I don't know what the problem is.
Let me just re-listen if that's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Because I think that my husband, and I could see this, but my husband, there will be unmet expectations, or you might have expectations that the person didn't know about.
Do you understand what she's saying there? That he has unmet expectations because she didn't know about them? Do you gather that from that?
I didn't gather that he and her. I didn't gather the him and I.
Who is the who?
Yeah, who's the who?
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that's making sense. But
rewind it a little bit.
Because I think that my husband, and I could see this, but my husband, there will be like unmet expectations or...
She's saying there will be unmet expectations.
Yeah, I think she wanted to say my husband has unmet expectations, but she didn't want to throw him completely under the bus. Yeah.
So, regardless, maybe I hope that in what I have outlined for today's episode, that we can address whatever it is that she is trying to get to. And I think we will, because I think expectations are a thing in relationships that oftentimes go unstated and all the things. I feel like if you've been around for a while, you understand I am a person who likes to define words. So I want to be clear about what an expectation is. An expectation is a belief or anticipation about what one desires or requires to happen in a particular situation or relationship. The part that stuck out to me is it's an anticipation of something that's going to happen, right? In marriage, expectations refer to the assumptions and hopes that each partner holds regarding the roles, responsibilities, and behaviors of their spouse. And I think it goes beyond just the roles, responsibilities, and behavior of their spouse, but I also think it goes into how the house will run. As far as how the house will run, I guess that goes into roles and responsibilities, but also like goals that you guys have as a couple. Like, where are you headed when you get married? Like, what are you working toward? Or what are some core values that you have as a unit raising children? Like, those are things that it's like, we can't just assume that Glenn and I have the same core values when it comes to raising children. We actually have to sit down and have a very direct conversation about that. And so one of the things going into this topic that I was thinking about, like in preparing for it, is even when communicating our expectations, which we'll get into in a little bit, I feel like before you can effectively communicate your expectations to your partner, I think we ourselves have to know or have some sort of expectation of self. Does that make sense? And I feel like Glenn and I have kind of been having this conversation currently, because I feel like, for me, for example, I'll just talk about my own personal experience. I have created this narrative in my mind, in my head, in my life of what it looks like to be a good wife, what it looks like to be a good mother, what it looks like to be a good human being, et cetera, et cetera. Like, there are things, there's a narrative, or there is like this checklist that I have created for myself of what it means to be a good insert that. Now, when you're in a marriage relationship, like, if I have this whole picture of what it looks like for me to be a good wife, but it looks nothing like what Glenn would hope for me, like hope for in a good wife, then there is a huge, like, you know what I'm saying? There's a gap that needs to be filled. And I feel like sometimes if we spend time thinking about, I think if we spend some time thinking about, okay, Yvette thinks a good wife looks like X, Y, Z, but Glenn thinks a good wife looks like A, B, C. So, like, how do we close the gap or even come into alignment of what it means to be a good wife to Glenry? Why are you chuckling?
I think that I think good isn't the goal.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because I think it negates capacities and possibilities.
Which we'll get into.
So I don't know if my expectation is to have a good wife.
Yes. And so that was just like a example that I was throwing out. Like,
right.
Here's an expectation of what it means to be a wife. And then, but you have your expectations type thing. I don't know. But
I don't think I do, but I guess I do. Because you think I do.
But I think, okay, I wish there was an expert on this, but I don't know if it's fair to say that someone doesn't have expectations. I think we're all walking around with our own set of expectations, whether we choose to acknowledge them or not.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Because you don't realize you have an expectation until your expectation ain't met. You don't realize you do have expectations.
Okay.
You expect me to have sex with you every night. I mean, not every night, but you expect me to have sex with you frequently as your wife.
No.
What?
I expect you to initiate sex when you want it. Those are two different things.
But you expect sex between you and your spouse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have an
That's like me saying I expect
to
my
eat and
stomach
drink. Yes.
to
I know.
digest the food.
Okay. So, but that's an expectation, right? Or else the marriage would die.
I don't think it would die, but
I mean, well, if you don't eat and drink water, because it seemed like you were drawing a parallel there.
No, I'm not saying that it's like. I think it's fundamental to the marriage's survival in a healthy way. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But like, certain circumstances put people in that can't do that. You know
true.
What I'm saying? In the traditional way or whatever.
But as long as I am physically able to be intimate with you in a sexual intercourse way, you expect that we will have sex. Just say yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. But I don't like that sex is often the point for men.
All right. What do you expect? You go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What were you gonna say?
Nah.
What do I expect? I think I expect space.
Okay.
In time.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I expect I don't understand it, but I get it. Do what you got to do. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what I expect. Considering what we do and that we've never done it before and that we have nobody to help us. You know what I mean? So that's like an expectation I have.
Okay.
And so when that expectation is not met, then I know from what you communicate to me that the expectation that I'm off. You know what I'm saying? And I'm kind of like, my expectation is for you not to understand it, but just to trust that I know what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. So my point is you have expectations.
Okay.
Like the point is we are all walking around with expectations. And I think that even goes back to my initial point of, I think sometimes before we can effectively communicate our expectations to our partner, we actually have to sit down and be honest with ourselves about the expectations that we have of said person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, which gets me into the effectively communicating. So I think in thinking about expectations, it's really important to be able to effectively communicate expectations. And before I get into this, we are covering it a little bit differently here, but I do want to plug really quick the premarital advantage. We have a module dedicated to communication as a whole. And whether you are single, engaged, in a dating relationship, or just talking to somebody, this premarital advantage course is for you. Glenn and I come alongside you as your mentor couple. It is not meant to replace an actual premarital counseling situation. It's basically meant to be an accompanying
it or supplementing.
Yes, it's basically a supplement to the actual premarital counseling. Maybe you're not necessarily at that point in your relationship yet where you want to start premarital counseling, but the premarital advantage is definitely a tool that you can use in order to support you in deciding, is this the next step? Is this person for me? And just also starting some of those really important conversations that will help you guys set you guys up for success in your marriage. You can go to howmarriedareyoupodcast.com and purchase it there. It is $250. And you will get a workbook directly emailed to you that you can print out on your own, put in a little 3-ring binder, and work through some things with your partner. Now, if this is something that you're doing solo, you can print out or like have it and reprint it out later when you do find somebody who you'd like to be in a relationship with.
Yeah, and then some people were asking if it was like gender specific, like there were some like same-sex couples that wanted to, but I don't think it matters. I think they're just really good questions to ask anybody who is interested. So I don't,
it's specific to anyone in a relationship with another person.
Yeah.
Now let's get back to this. I think in order to effectively communicate your expectations, the one thing you need to be is clear and specific. And the only way you can be clear and specific is if you're truthful with yourself about what your expectations are. Mm-hmm. And maybe this will take time. Like it just took Glenn a little bit of time in this moment to think, oh, wait, I do have an expectation. Here's an expectation that I have. And so I think that if you are being triggered by something that's happening in your relationship, if there's a specific thing that you're like, oh, this bothers me every single time this person does it, that is communicating to you an expectation that you have. And so I don't know, maybe you can take some time to write it down, to think about it, to maybe talk to a mentor about it or someone else that you trust in your circle about it. But it's really important to be able to effectively communicate your expectation, that you are clear and that you're specific. I started to think about SMART goals when thinking about expectations because I feel like it is somewhat relatable. When you think about SMART goals, you talk about how it's specific. The S stands for specific. It's measurable. Is A attainable? Attainable. R is realistic. And T is there's time. Like you can do it in appropriate amount of time.
I think it's relevant, not
realistic. Yeah, you're right. Relevant is not realistic.
Because attainable and realistic are kind of the same thing, I think. You want to order some food? I'm hungry. Sorry.
Not from Veggie Girl. I'm good. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, it's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. And so I think that is something that even can be considered when talking about when thinking about what expectations you have. Now, also in effectively communicating expectations.
Okay. I feel like I'm being loaded up for like one of the craziest like back kicks of all time.
I'm trying to drive the conversation. Okay, I want you to engage with me. So should I wait?
No, I just want to order something.
I know.
I'm like starving. Okay, go ahead.
So I will admit, and I'm going to give an example. My next point is when you're effectively communicating your expectations, you want to choose the right time and the right place. And we have a recent example of when I did not choose the right time to communicate an expectation. Glenn and I, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, the kids go to an on-campus situation. And on Thursday morning, right before I needed to leave to take the kids to school, I communicated an expectation of, hey, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I could really use your help to like either make breakfast or take the kids to school. That was not the right time to tell Glenn that or to reiterate that to Glenn. And it was perfect. It was at home, so it was the right place. But I think when we're thinking about communicating our expectations, we can't necessarily, I don't know, actually. Doing it in the moment sometimes is helpful to be able to give an example, but maybe it's better to note the moment, like the incident, and then refer back to it later.
No, I understood what you were saying. I think that the thing was, hey, can you take the kids to school? And my reply was, no, I have a meeting. Mm-hmm. And then it was, yo, I need you to do this or this on this morning. And those mornings in particular, like Tuesdays are fine, but Thursdays are just not good mornings for me. I have like
every other Thursday or every Thursday.
Every Thursday, I have wild meetings on Thursdays, and it's a short day for me technically.
Okay.
Yeah, and so you were trying to communicate that in the moment, and it didn't go well.
It didn't go well. It ended up being
because not because of what was said. It was how it was said.
Yes, exactly. That's another point. I didn't even put that on here. But to effectively communicate your expectations, I think it is also very good to be mindful of how you communicate them. If you're like in a heightened state, that's probably not the best time for you to communicate your expectations to the person. I think another thing to do is avoid you statements. So an example of that is instead of saying you never help around the house, say, I would appreciate it if we could share the household chores, and don't make them feel like you're attacking them, but include yourself in like we statements, I guess, is a way of putting it. And then I want to go back to what Glenn was saying about like how Thursday mornings are just like impossible for him. I think an important part of effectively communicating your expectations is being willing to adjust your expectations. Like you can communicate, hey, this is something that I expect of you, but when they come back and they're like, that's just not feasible for me, then you have to be willing to accept that. And then the both of you have to be willing to work towards a compromise of how can you support me in this way? Or if it's just not possible, because sometimes it's just not possible because of capacity or other responsibilities that they have that actually move us toward other goals that we have in life. And so I think being open to compromise and being willing to listen to your partner's expectations and work towards finding a solution together is what is really good for that. Another thing that I wanted to share was following up, because that expectation, for example, that I communicated to Glenn, it was not the first time I had said that to Glenn. But I think like if I would have touched bases with him like on Sunday, about the week ahead.
Or the night before.
Or even the night before, it probably would have gone a little bit differently that particular morning. And so one of the things about me that I will say is I don't necessarily like to repeat myself. When I ask Glenn to like do something, I want him to remember and not forget and hit the nail on the head every single time. And that in and of itself is just not a fair expectation. I think that it's just not fair. And so I think sometimes we have to be willing to humble ourselves and repeat ourselves. Be like, hey, remember when we kind of talked about this? Or even don't even remind them, because once you say it, they're probably going to recall whatever it is that you communicated to them. Do you have anything to say as far as that is concerned?
Yeah, I think that the hard part is that like, it's not necessarily the remembrance that can be the issue. I think sometimes it's just that like, life gets in the way, your own thoughts get in the way, and it's like it's not. And I think what happens is when an expectation isn't met, sometimes it feels like an attack. You're purposefully trying to not meet my expectations so you can sabotage my life because you don't care.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, no, that's not it at all. And like, so Thursday, like just our Thursday morning examples, when we decided to do when I decided to take my meetings on Thursday morning, I was like, it was a discussion that we had, and I was like, do you want to do this with me or no? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but it was every other Thursday.
It was
not
every other Thursday. But because I have that time blocked off, it just makes sense to anybody wants to meet to schedule on Thursday. You know what I'm saying? But I think that.
But even that wasn't communicated to me.
No, that wasn't.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so, yeah, I don't know. I feel like the expectations that we both have of each other, they're different. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want me to ask you for more so you can help me.
I'm like this woman.
Yeah.
I'm like this woman because for me, what happens is I kind of feel attacked when you come to me and you're like, blah. Like, it's obvious that I have missed the mark. And it's like, but can you be a little bit more, like, I'm a mathematician. I think another part of understanding expectations is understanding who you're married to, too, is having that type of, whatever. Like, for example, the fact that, like, I said you need to follow up or repeat yourself or whatever, Glenn deals with so much stuff within just a 24-hour period. I be looking at him, like his text messages. He has like 200, like thousands of text messages unread, emails, phone calls. He's juggling all the different things and conversations. And it's not all about one thing. It's like multiple different tabs. He's just like us women. I think all of us have the multiple different tabs open. But like Glenn has that on the business front. And so if I'm asking him to open up some other tabs on the home front, I understand that that's a lot to keep track of. So my lack of willingness to follow up is lame, essentially, because it's like, Yvette, just like you forget things, Glenn's going to forget things.
I think, for me, I'm going to be honest with you, I feel like you may be trying to test and see if I care enough to remember.
I do that. Yeah. I will admit that.
So not to be like disrespectful, but when I was on tour with your youngest brother, he's like that too. Like it's a family culture thing. It's probably a family thing. So it's like, I just want to see if they really rock with me like that.
You know what's interesting? Because my mom recently said her birthday was just like last week, and she was like, my coworkers were asking, like, if I'm surprised your grandkids didn't come by, because that's a thing. You know what I'm saying? But she never communicated that she wanted us to come by. And honestly, I did think of it, but the kids were in school on that day. Yeah. So I couldn't. But it's like, that must be a thing that we have. But I don't even know if it's like, because I'm thinking about my family, I think it's a mom, me, and younger brother thing.
Yeah, so I would say that I notice it all the time. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not trying to like say...
No, I understand.
But it's like, a couple weeks ago, you were like, look, I'm not asking to have sex, but when are we going to have sex, right? Like soon. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, we could have just... She was like, you were like, no, I don't want to do it now. And I was like, what is that? Because essentially you're asking for it, but you're asking when, and you're putting it back on me. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I think that I don't know where that lies in the conversation, but I think it's a thing because I think that there's also an expectation for me to, like, I feel like it's like almost like honor. Like you see it as honor. You know what I mean? And that's really it. It's honor. Yeah. And so I think that if I'm put in that position over and over and over again, I'm gonna lose most of the time. And I can understand why people like kind of like just notice other people caring. Because the fact that I'm not remembering things makes it seem like I don't care. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so the fact that someone else would be like, oh yeah, isn't it like your anniversary, your grandmother's da-da-da-da? Yeah. And you're like, yes, thank you. Yeah. And yes, I got my eyebrows done. And yeah, I got my tooth fixed too. Thank you so much for noticing. You know what I mean? And then it's kind of like, you don't care compared to other, but it's like, it's so strange, man, how easy it is. Because like, I remember being single and like looking at my married friends, like, why aren't you like prioritizing this part of your wife's life? You know what I'm saying? And it's like, because I'm prioritizing this part of my wife's life. You know what I'm saying? And it's so interesting. Yeah. Because I watch social media and I watch the men, a lot of men, who are doing well and seemingly doing well, I guess, you know what I'm saying, and seem to be men of standard and who care about their wives and stuff like that. I'm often like, sorry, I'm like freaking out. Okay.
Yeah, why is that like
I don't know. I'm often like curious on, how they do it, like how they manage. You know what I mean? Because it's like the expectation for a man is high, and a woman is high, right? I feel like an expectation for a man is high. I feel like the expectation for a mother is really high. Right? Like a husband and a mother is really high. And I'm not saying that expectations for wives are not high. I'm just saying that
Once you add children into the mix, it changes.
it changes.
It changes.
Right? So it's higher for a mother. And so these dudes is raising the expectations. Like dudes would be like, yeah, man, my wife, none of the money she makes come to the house. All of it goes to her. And I'm like,
Somebody told you that?
no, I see like these type of interviews. I think
Oh,
DeVal and
what?
Kadeem actually were talking about, like DeVal was talking about this. And I was like, and maybe I could be taking this out of context, so forgive me if I am. But I was like, okay, you know what I'm saying? And I'm just kind of like, maybe I'm just not there yet. But it doesn't make me less of a man. And that's when you get to comparing yourself to people on social media.
No, but then that's when you get to communicating the expectations of not just, because when I was defining expectations, it's like you anticipate, what is it? The anticipation about what one desires or requires to happen in a particular, let's just call it marriage. You know what I'm saying? And maybe that's a standard of their marriage. Have you seen, there's a new show called How to Get Rich or something on Netflix?
Is it like
How
a
to
marriage
Be
show?
Wealthy? No, it's not a marriage show. But there was one clip that I saw, and I almost started watching it last night. I've been watching a lot of TV, y'all. But there was an interview about this man and woman who, I hope this isn't a huge bird walking thing, but there's this interview about this man and woman where the man was like the sole provider initially, and then his wife, he was like supporting his wife into her career. And mind you, I just saw a clip. I didn't see the full thing. And when he was like working and making money, it was like there was a joint account, all the things, yada, yada, yada. They started having children. He becomes the primary parent. He eventually becomes the stay-at-home parent. He's not making any money. His wife is now the breadwinner. Now they all of a sudden have separate accounts. Now she's like very particular about how money is spent. He doesn't really have a say-so on any of that type of stuff, yada, yada, yada. It's just this whole thing. But they're like working with a guy who's like trying to help them become wealthy, I guess, or whatever. And so he's just getting input from the couple on how they manage money. And they were talking, and it was one of those things where like when she became the primary breadwinner, the expectations that she had shifted from when he was the primary stay-at-home. I mean, the primary person making money, or the main, I don't know what you call him.
Yeah.
That person. And so I just think that for that example that you gave, it's a matter of communicating up front. This is an expectation I have. Eventually, I don't want to have to contribute to the household. You know what I mean? Like, you do your thing and you provide for our house and make sure we can live. But like, when I start making money, like at some point, my money is my money. You know what I'm saying?
Are you communicating that to me right now?
Hell no.
Oh, okay.
That is
Because
not.
that was a soundbite. The way you just said that, yeah.
Don't clip that, y'all.
Yeah.
So that's not an expectation of mine. I have always I mean, to each their own, but for me, I don't really like the whole like two separate bank accounts thing when it comes to like our livelihood. Now we have multiple bank accounts just because of business and stuff,
Who
but
picked up the kids?
3.
Oh, okay, sorry.
You know, so yeah, I believe everything should be in the same pot and we should all know what's going in, what's coming out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it should just always be like that. And if I eventually get an allowance, then so be it. I feel like we've tried that before, but we're not in a place where we can do that right now.
We've tried that with when you were making money, right?
Yeah, because we were trying to do like a budget and we wanted to enjoy life.
We both
too.
got an allowance.
Yeah.
It wasn't just
yeah.
you that got an allowance, right?
See, that was a sound bite. You better.
I'm trying to make sure.
Yeah.
Trying to clean it up.
But yeah. So, anywho, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, but I think that's important, like to communicate that.
Yeah.
Those expectations of like if things were to change, how would you feel? You know, about that. You know.
Yeah, and I think to go back to like the whole like idea of social media and how we can see different couples and families living their lives in certain ways, when you start to like, because I've been in that place, I feel like I recently saw an interview somewhere where a couple was talking and I was like starting to feel some type of way. And then I was like, but Yvette, really? Do you want that? Like, is that something you want for yourself? So I think like,
What was it?
I don't remember what it was. Oh, I think like sometimes I just see people living these glamorous lives and stuff. And then I realize that's cool, but that's really not my goal. Like my goal is to live off the land, like just own this beautiful large piece of property and have a tennis court and I think I like pickleball too. A pickleball, like just all these different things where we don't want to leave home. You know what I mean? Have an RV and we can just, like the other day, our neighbors were loading up their RV and taking off. And I was just like, oh, I wonder where they're going.
Yeah.
You know, like I want more of a low key life. So why am I getting all whatever about these people who are going on these elaborate vacations that sound exhausting to me or seem exhausting to me? You know what I'm saying? So I don't know.
Yeah, unless they want to give us a free vacation.
I mean, yeah, like we'll take the vacation on your dime. But I'm just saying, if I were to book a trip for myself, it would be one of relaxation and exploring and
would
hiking.
be one of adventure. It wouldn't be a relaxation.
I think hiking
Is
and
relaxing.
exploring new trails is relaxing. Like being in nature, I feel like that is very relaxing. I did want to talk about realistic versus unrealistic expectations for a moment and then I have a couple of sentences that I'm going to read.
Okay.
So realistic expectations in marriage are those that are grounded in a firm understanding of the realities of marriage and relationships. I think Glenn and I have reached some pain points along our 12 years of marriage because we haven't done what our what did our person called? Our marriage therapist said, which is like a renegotiation of terms, you know? So like real expectations are grounded in a firm understanding of the realities of marriage, right? So if Glenn were in the military and he was overseas, you know, is that what it's called? Like when they go
deployment.
When they were deployed, if he was deployed or something, the expectation is I'm going to take care of everything on the home front because he's out serving our country, right? Like that's just an expectation I have. Now, if I think a realistic expectation of mine would be like, hey, can we add to the budget a line that says childcare because you are away and that would require me to be on it 24/7. But for my mental health, I need whatever. So I think a realistic expectation is like, hey, can we hire help for certain periods of time while you're gone on deployment?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To relieve me of whatever. But I think the part that a lot of us need to understand is that we need to have not only like realistic expectations, but real understanding of what season of life we're in. If I am if I have a newborn child, things in our marriage are going to look a little different versus if my kids are like 10 and older. You know what I mean? Like things change for us. And so I think it's important to think about that when considering realistic expectations. Unrealistic expectations, on the other hand, are those.
I'm sorry, just real quick. You talked about we didn't listen to our therapist by doing a renegotiation.
Well, yeah. So I feel like we've mentioned this before, but in case you're new to the podcast, our therapist, she encouraged us early on, probably when we first started going with her. She was like, it sounds like y'all need a renegotiation of terms. So basically we were trying to proceed with life with expectations we've had, but our circumstances changed.
Yeah.
So certain expectations cannot be carried into new seasons of life. You know what I mean? It's just not practical, really. And so the renegotiation of terms is like, okay, this is where we're at now in life. can we take a minute and just adjust this expectation together so that it makes sense in this season versus last season?
You don't feel like we did that?
No, I'm saying over our 12 years of life,
We should have did that
our
a few
12
times.
years of marriage, when we hit moments of tension or whatever, I feel like it's been because we didn't take that moment to renegotiate terms. And it wasn't until we started couples therapy that we even like considered that concept.
Right. That's a tool that we use now. I don't know if we had those tools before.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So it's helped us along the way.
I'm always scared of that, though. I don't really like
You don't
that.
like the renegotiation of terms?
No, because I feel like where we're at is a transition. And so once we renegotiate them, we had to renegotiate them again.
Where we're at, what? Say it
Like
again?
right now, we're in transition.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like we're going to have to renegotiate them again. Like when I was moving all the stuff into the office, like those were late nights. You know what I'm saying? And so like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like there's always a reason to
Renegotiate.
So I just think like, hey, if we create a system where we can get some time away or, you know, whatever. But like, I think, you know, I'm less inclined to renegotiate terms and just deal with it.
Yeah.
And so I feel like if we both started renegotiating, speaking on the stuff we want to renegotiate, we'd both be unhappy.
I don't know if that's true.
Okay.
I don't know if that's true.
All right.
Unrealistic expectations, on the other hand, are those that are not based in reality and can be harmful to a marriage. They stem from unrealistic beliefs about marriage or relationships that are perpetuated by popular culture, media, or family and friends. So, like, sometimes we grow up watching our parents do life a certain way, or sometimes we look at your Kadeen and DeVals and we're like, oh, well, she doesn't have to take her money and contribute to the household. Well, yeah. I mean, look at the kind of money DeVal's making. You know what I'm saying?
Well, or just not. I don't know how much money the man's making, but
I mean, he's like an actor.
yeah, but that don't mean he's making a lot of money. I think he has a lot of businesses and he's doing well. But
okay, yeah.
Yeah, but I will also say, like, it's not just about the money. It's also about the community they could have, right?
Say more.
Okay, so like we lost a lot of community, right? A lot of people we relied on, right? So we don't have a lot of support. So money we would probably save with childcare, we spend all of that money.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like all like childcare, like we spend way more than daycare. You understand? Like we spend a lot of money on that, you know, because we don't have the family support that some other people have. And I don't know their situation, you know what I'm saying? But it's looking at their community, it's looking at where they live, it's looking at, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, it's just different things.
Yeah.
And how consistent they've been. Like they've worked really hard to be where they're at.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying? So that's one thing I want to credit them too, because they are freaking phenomenal. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to consistency.
Yeah. What was I saying?
You were talking about comparing yourself to a Kadena and DeVal, possibly.
They may stem from unrealistic beliefs about marriage or relationships based on things that you. Yeah. So,
but if you're only looking at the surface, it's gonna be an unrealistic belief,
Yes.
right? So like, because people, I'm sorry, I was trying to help you out.
no, you are helping me out. I'm glad because
Right.
I got lost.
Yeah. So there's, you know, I was talking to somebody, and they were talking about how, you know, their wife compares them to us.
Oh.
Yeah. And so they're like, you know, like, why can't we do it like they do it? Da, 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 da. And I'm just kind of like, what do you think this is? You know? But it's always those looking in that have that, you know, that wild point of view, you know?
Yeah.
And that's unrealistic, I think, for sure.
Which I think like it's worthwhile because I've actually been thinking about this over the last few days of just asking folk. You know what I mean? Like flat out. Like seriously. Because sometimes, like, I'm not going to front. Glenn and I have a marriage podcast, right? And you guys know a lot of the ins and outs of our marriage. But sometimes I feel like a fraud because it's like we don't necessarily have the perfect marriage. And so whenever we get into tiffs, or what do they call it? Icks with each other, I start to feel like, what are we even doing? Why are we even like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was thinking, like, I wish I had somebody else to talk to, because I'm sure there's pastors and wives who people look at every Sunday and are like, oh, I just really want that. But they're human.
Yeah.
So they probably argue and get upset with each other too.
Oh, most definitely.
And they have moments of reconciliation and all the things, but it's like we don't get to see that and we don't get to hear about that often. And so sometimes I just want to go to somebody and be like, tell me.
Well, that's why, I mean, the problem with, I think, our generation, the good thing is that we're
With
very
our generation?
The good thing that we have is that we're very transparent.
Mm-hmm.
The bad thing is that we don't collaborate enough. So we're often in competition with each other.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So when you find someone who's living the same life as you, they're trying to protect themselves from whatever. It's like we still bring in those, like, you know, poverty mindsets to some degree. And so I understand that. And that's why I'm like, when I find somebody, I'm like, they need to, like, you search for community differently than me.
Yeah.
You're trying to find people
To pour into me.
Not even that. I think just look like you. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to find someone who does exactly what I do, and their family, like, we can have the same conversations. You know what I mean? So other families who do influencing to some degree, or have some type of life that is on display. You know what I mean? Because that's really valuable. You know what I'm saying? And so I love it when I see, like, you know, Tab and, you know, Chance and Kevin and Melissa kicking in, and, you know, all that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I think that stuff is super dope. So, yeah, like, I don't think we have enough collaboration in our communities
That do what we do. Yeah.
But I think that's to our fault.
It's to our fault?
Yeah, it can be our fault too.
Yeah. All right. I had two last points that I wanted to make about managing your expectation, one, and then setting boundaries with your expectations, because I do believe there is a point when expectations can become harmful, when they become unrealistic, rigid, or uncommunicated, right? When we hold on to expectations that are not in line with reality, we can experience disappointment, frustration, and even resentment. This can be especially true in intimate relationships such as marriage, where unmet expectations can lead to conflicts and feelings of hurt and betrayal. So I think when you're managing your expectations, it's really important to make sure they're realistic, to make sure they're flexible, and to make sure that they're effectively communicated, because it's just helpful. I think too, like, as a person on the receiving end of an expectation, if your significant other is expecting you to, like, lick the bottom of their feet every day, or I don't know, it's just a weird one. It's like an unrealistic, unhealthy, like, you know what I mean? It's just, I'm trying to make a extreme example of it. That one was really gross. What's another, like, unrealistic expectation that's, like, not healthy and can be dangerous potentially?
Yeah, I think that an unrealistic expectation is that, like, you know, I think, like, sex every day is an unrealistic expectation.
But there are people who do that.
There are people who do that. You know what I'm saying? But, like, depending on who you married to, that's an unrealistic expectation. You know what I mean? Or, like, I know people who do that and, like, brag on it to me. And I'm just kind of like, bro, cool, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's fine. If I don't get it, you know, I'll just get weird. Like, dudes be saying that type of stuff. And
What
I'm just
the
like,
heck?
man, get away from me, man. Like,
Yeah.
it seems like you're trying to invite me in the swing or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, get away from me, you know?
Yeah.
I also think that unrealistic expectations look like that, you know, reconciliation, you know, is not a part of the process, or like,
Yeah.
you know, forcing people to bend to your will, or
Not being willing to compromise, like not being
Yeah.
willing to, it's the rigidity of expectations that makes them dangerous. And so it's really important that as you're setting expectations in your relationship, that both parties understand they need to be flexible, that they need to be willing to work together toward a common goal as far as that is concerned, because sometimes our capacities change in different seasons, and just because of not even so much seasons, but also just because of physical wellness. I don't know, all the different things.
Do you think it's easy to receive? Like someone gives you like, hey, my expectation is that you would, make dinner every night. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, what if someone doesn't want to do that?
Yeah.
Is it like, how do you feel like, what's a good response to that, Like, like how do you
say, I don't know if I have the capacity to make a new dinner every night, but I can make batch meals so that there are leftovers throughout the week. Mm-hmm. Something like that. Like, that's an example of compromising. Like, okay, you want a home cooked meal every week or every night. I can make meals and you can have leftovers or something, like big pots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, I think it's just a matter of being willing to listen to your partner and hear them out and work together, you guys.
Yeah.
How married are you?
I don't know. Let me think.
Last night.
Oh, doing a dishwasher?
No, you made me dinner.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Were you even expecting dinner?
I wasn't gonna. Yesterday, y'all, I was depressed. I laid in bed for a majority of the day, and the kids tended to themselves for a majority of the day. And I came downstairs. I was not expecting Glenn to be home last night at all. But at around 5:30,
yeah,
maybe even closer to 6, I came downstairs and I was like, oh shoot, you guys need to eat. So I made plates for the kids that were all leftover stuff. And I was planning on, I kind of straightened up the kitchen so Glenn could prepare his meal, because y'all know he's vegan now. And I was planning on going back upstairs to bed.
Pescatarian now.
Pescatarian.
I'm eating fish.
Okay.
Can't do the vegan thing. I could do it. It's just too much planning. But yeah, so I made myself some food. It wasn't even good. It was pretty dry, but I was so hungry. I was in that mood where I take out everything. So I just cod, shrimp, green onions,
zucchini.
lion's mane. I just took everything out. I was like, all right, what can I make fast? Mm-hmm. And that's how hungry I was. But and so I made Yvette a nice little platter of all the things kind of portioned out.
He even plated it well.
Yeah. So, and yeah, that's how married I am. How married are you?
I'm so married that this weekend, instead of going to the Ye Retreat, I bypassed it and let you go to the Dad Gang event, which I think seemed like it was pretty nice.
It was great.
Yeah.
I still would have wanted you to go to that, I guess. But yeah.
It just would have been too much juggling.
Okay.
And that's just how married we are.